Picture this, right? It's the early hours of May 7th, 1965. We are in a flat in Carlton Hill, London.
Yeah, a very specific time and place.
Exactly. So a 21-year-old Keith Richards suddenly jolts awake from a super deep sleep. He's got this melody just looping in his head.
Which is pretty common for musicians, but he actually does something about it.
He does. He reaches over to his bedside table, grabs this clunky, newly available Philips portable cassette recorder, and just hits record.
Those things were not small back then, by the way.
No, totally massive. So he plays this rough, sketchy acoustic guitar line, mumbles the phrase, "I can't get no satisfaction," and then he just falls right back asleep.
The best part is what happens the next day.
Right. When he wakes up the next morning and plays the tape back, what he finds is about 2 minutes of a very raw acoustic idea, followed by like 40 straight minutes of his own snoring.
It really is the ultimate, almost mythical rock and roll origin story. I mean, you basically have an entire cultural revolution birthed between REM cycles.
It's incredible to think about. And before we get any further, you are listening to Deep Cuts and Deep Thinking.
We're so glad you're here with us.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, our mission is to explore the absolute anatomy of the Rolling Stones. I can't get no satisfaction.
We are unpacking how a half-asleep mumble and honestly a completely misunderstood piece of technology rewired the grammar of rock music.
Yeah, and we're going to look at how it captured a generation's existential angst and how it transformed a British blues cover band into a massive global powerhouse.
To really grasp the weight of this track, you have to look at the world it was born into. 1965 was this massive pivot point.
Because that early 60s optimism was sort of fracturing, right?
Exactly. The shiny mop-top era of pop and the post-war boom was giving way to a much deeper cynicism.
You had the escalating Vietnam War and all the intense, often violent struggles of the civil rights movement.
Right, the culture was getting incredibly restless, and this song became the demiurge of popular guitar music. It gave a snarling, visceral voice to the emerging counterculture.
Okay, let's unpack this, because we need to move from the myth of that bedside cassette tape to the reality of the recording studio.
Because ideas might be born in dreams, but they are forged in the studio.
Well said. And there is a persistent myth we really need to clear up right away. For decades, people thought that sleep tape moment happened by a pool in Clearwater, Florida.
Yes, the famous Jack Tar Harrison hotel myth.
Exactly. But Keith actually recorded the riff in London. The confusion happened because Mick Jagger did write the bulk of the lyrics by that pool in Florida just a few days before they hit the studio.
So the dream riff and the lyric writing sort of merged into this one giant Florida origin story in the public consciousness.
Right. But the actual evolution of the track happened in two very different studios over just a couple of days.
It's a fascinating timeline that shows how fragile a hit song can be. On May 10th, 1965, the band is at Chess Studios in Chicago.
Which is total hallowed ground for blues music.
Absolute hallowed ground. They cut the first proper version of the song there, and if you hear it, it sounds almost nothing like the anthem we know.
It's way looser, right? More acoustic.
Yeah, it's acoustic. It has this very Bob Dylan, folk-tinged feel to it, complete with Brian Jones playing the harmonica. The swagger just isn't there. It feels almost polite.
But then, just 2 days later, May 12th, they are at RCA Studios in Los Angeles, and everything changes.
This is where the technology steps in and completely alters history.
You're talking about the pedal.
Yes. The Maestro FZ1 Fuzz Tone. This is the first commercially marketed fuzz distortion pedal. And what's fascinating here is that it was actually born out of a mistake.
Wait, a mistake? How so?
Well, in 1961, some engineers in Nashville heard a faulty preamplifier channel during a recording session, and they literally tried to build a pedal that replicated that broken, saturated sound.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it used these germanium transistors to force the audio signal into severe hard clipping. It created a square wave harmonic structure, adding odd order harmonics that gave the guitar an aggressive buzz.
Wait, let me stop you right there. Germanium transistors, severe hard clipping, square waves. I'm going to need a translation here.
Fair point.
For those of us who aren't audio engineers, what does hard clipping actually mean in practical terms?
Okay, let's visualize it. Imagine you have a giant, perfectly round beach ball. That represents a smooth, clean audio wave from a guitar.
Got it. Round beach ball.
Now imagine trying to forcefully push that huge round beach ball through a much smaller square window.
It won't fit unless you crush it.
Exactly. You have to violently chop off or flatten the rounded top and bottom of the ball just to cram it through the frame.
Oh, I see.
That's what the pedal does to the sound wave. It takes a smooth signal, amplifies it way beyond what the circuit can handle, and literally clips off the peaks.
So that violent flattening turns the smooth wave into a blocky square shape.
Right. And to our ears, that square shape sounds like aggressive, buzzing distortion. It sounds almost synthetic, like a hornet in a jar.
That makes total sense. And here's where it gets really interesting to me. It's like someone today using a bizarre, highly distorted voice filter on social media just as a joke.
Yeah, or just as a placeholder.
Exactly. And then the audience completely falls in love with the filter rather than the real thing.
Yeah.
Didn't Keith Richards actually hate that fuzz sound?
He really did. He thought it was a gimmick.
So why did he even use it?
In Keith's mind, that fuzz pedal was purely a sketching tool. He envisioned Satisfaction as an homage to the brassy soul sounds of Stax and Motown.
Oh, he wanted horns.
Yeah, he wanted a full horn section playing that riff.
Huh.
The fuzz was just a stand-in, a loud placeholder so they wouldn't forget the melody before they could hire the trumpet and saxophone players.
But the rest of the room felt differently.
Oh, entirely. Producer Andrew Luke Oldham, the engineer Dave Hassinger, and the rest of the band heard this distorted, nasty guitar tone and realized it was revolutionary.
He was way more evocative and dangerous than a traditional brass arrangement would be.
Definitely. They actually had to outvote Keith to keep it. And by keeping it, they accidentally launched the entire guitar effects industry.
And made distortion a primary melodic voice in rock music.
Absolutely.
So they built this relentless, buzzing musical engine. But how does that actually dictate the emotional feel of the song? Because the anatomy of this track is practically designed to frustrate you.
It really is a masterclass in brutal economy. The harmonic language is incredibly basic. It's an E, A, and B chord loop, what we call a standard 1-4-5 progression.
Another translation request.
Yeah.
What does a 1-4-5 progression feel like to the average listener?
It feels like home. It is the absolute backbone of the blues and early rock and roll. Think Johnny B. Good or Hound Dog.
Okay, sure.
It's a progression that inherently sets up an expectation, builds tension, and then resolves it. But here, the Stones apply a Mixolydian, bluesy flavor, and the riff is doing all the heavy lifting.
It's just a simple descending scale, right? 3, 2, 1.
Exactly. And the structure of the song is relentless. There is no traditional chorus.
Which is crazy for a pop song.
Right. There's no contrasting bridge to give your ear a break or a shift in perspective.
It's just a loop.
It's just a loop, and the rhythmic tension is brilliant. You have Charlie Watts on drums playing this steady backbeat, but he's adding these tiny jazz-informed micro pushes.
Meaning he's playing slightly ahead of the beat?
Yes, exactly. He's striking the drum just a fraction of a millisecond before you expect it, which creates a feeling of urgency.
Like the song is constantly leaning forward.
You nailed it. And over that, Bill Wyman is playing these rolling, continuous passing notes on the bass.
And then Brian Jones and Jack Nitzsche are adding those choppy, offbeat accents on acoustic rhythm, guitar, piano, and a 4-on-the-floor tambourine.
It's a dense, churning machine.
So if you picture being inside that groove, and I want you listening to just imagine that feeling for a second. It's incredibly tense. You keep waiting for the musical release.
You keep waiting for the grand soaring chorus to open up.
Or a key change, some kind of musical satisfaction.
Yeah.
And it never comes. It just grinds forward and eventually fades out.
Yeah, it never resolves.
So if the band is acting like this relentless machine, is Mick Jagger's vocal essentially a man just trying to claw his way out of that machine?
That is the perfect way to look at it. The music physically enacts the dissatisfaction of the title.
Wow, that's brilliant.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's actually a modernized dystopian update on the classic call and response lineage of Chicago blues.
How so?
Well, normally, a blues singer delivers a line of sorrow, and a harmonica or a clean guitar answers them with a sympathetic melody.
Right.
But here, Jagger sings his complaint, and that mechanical, distorted fuzz riff answers him. The riff almost acts as an intrusive inner voice.
It's mocking his complaints.
Exactly, hammering home the reality that he's stuck in this loop.
So the music has built this inescapable cage of frustration. But what exactly is he clawing his way out of? What is the narrator so frustrated about?
That's where the lyrics come in.
When you look at the specific targets Jagger is aiming at, it feels incredibly relatable to anyone scrolling through a modern, ad-saturated social media feed today.
It really does. It was a direct reaction to the consumer overload the band was witnessing during their American tours in 1965.
Because Britain was still somewhat drab and recovering economically, right?
Yeah, but America was in full Technicolor consumer boom. Jagger is acting as a sort of half-tourist, half-critic. He's critiquing the fundamental promise of advertising.
The idea that buying a product will transform your identity and finally make you happy.
Right. And he gets really specific, too. He talks about a man coming on the TV to tell him how white my shirts can be.
Which is a direct shot at detergent commercials.
Yeah. But the real bite is the next line, where he says the guy on TV can't be a real man because he doesn't smoke the same cigarettes.
That feels like a highly targeted critique.
It was. At the time, Tareyton Cigarettes were running a massive, ubiquitous television campaign with the slogan, "Us Tareyton smokers would rather fight than switch."
Oh, with the black eyes.
Exactly. The commercials literally featured people with black eyes, implying they'd gotten into a fistfight to defend their brand of cigarettes.
It is so weird.
It was all about associating brand loyalty with rugged, violent masculinity. Jagger's narrator is looking at this absurdity and completely rejecting it.
He's pointing out the psychic injury of being bombarded by this useless information. He sees consumerism as an emotional fraud.
Perfectly said.
But it's not just the TV ads that are letting him down. There is a deeply personal, physical frustration in the lyrics, too. But wait, this is where I get a little confused by the cultural narrative.
About what?
The Stones' whole brand was being these virile, dangerous rock gods. How is a lyric about striking out with a girl subversive if their entire image was built on being the ultimate bad boys?
Well, that's exactly why it is subversive. It undermines their own marketing.
Oh, I see.
On the surface, yes, they were being pushed as the dangerous, highly sexual anti-Beatles. But the narrator in this song isn't a conquering rock god. He's exhausted.
He's overworked on tour, complaining about doing this and signing that.
And his sexual encounters are completely transactional and unfulfilling. He's trying to make some girl, but she tells him to come back next week because she's on a losing streak.
Ah, right. And that line caused a massive uproar, didn't it?
It did, but honestly for the wrong reasons. A losing streak was a common slang reference to menstruation.
Really?
Yeah. And what's brilliant is how Jagger inadvertently bypassed the censors. The radio programmers in America were in a panic over the preceding phrase, trying to make some girl.
Because they thought that was far too explicit for pop radio.
Right. They were so focused on that phrase, they completely missed the actual dirtiest, most intimate line in the song.
That is hilarious. It allowed the band to signal this shared, subversive underground language directly to their younger audience right under the noses of the establishment.
Exactly. Still, the establishment certainly tried to push back. In the US, the song was an absolute smash hit number 1 in July of 1965. But over in the UK, it was a totally different story.
The BBC flat out refused to play it, right?
Yeah, they found the lyrics too suggestive, too anti-establishment. At the time, the BBC had a virtual monopoly on the airwaves.
But you can't suppress a song with that much cultural energy.
No, you can't. The BBC's ban just created a massive vacuum, and that vacuum was filled by pirate radio stations.
I find this part of the history so fascinating. How exactly did pirate radio work? Why couldn't the British government just shut them down?
Because of maritime law. These stations, like the famous Radio Caroline, were literal ships, often rusty, converted fishing trawlers, anchored out in the North Sea.
Just floating out there.
Yeah. Because they were anchored just over 3 miles off the coast, they were in international waters. They were legally outside British jurisdiction.
That is amazing.
So they set up massive broadcast antennas on the decks and beamed rock and roll back to the British mainland, totally circumventing government censorship.
That is basically a cultural heist.
It really is. And Satisfaction became an absolute anthem on these pirate ships.
I can imagine.
It cultivated such a massive audience, we're talking tens of millions of listeners tuning into these rebel broadcasts, that it eventually forced the UK government to recognize they couldn't stop the youth culture.
And it directly led to the BBC restructuring and creating BBC Radio 1 just to compete, right?
Exactly.
So, looking at all of this, what does it mean for you, the listener, today? I think there's this brilliant rhetorical pivot happening in the track.
What do you mean?
Well, the lyrics are entirely about a lack of satisfaction. It's a bitter complaint about feeling empty. But if you have ever been in a car or at a concert and screamed, "I can't get no satisfaction," at the top of your lungs alongside a crowd of people, it is immensely physically satisfying.
Oh, totally. It delivers the exact catharsis that the lyrics say is impossible. By shouting about your isolation together, you aren't isolated anymore.
Yes. The Stones took the concept of negation and turned it into an ecstatic, communal shout.
They positioned themselves as the cynical, dangerous alternative to the surface optimism of early 60s pop.
They were saying the quiet part out loud, that this shiny new consumer paradise actually feels incredibly fake and lonely.
Which perfectly leads us to the song's legacy. Because a song this subversive, a song that so directly attacks consumerism and the phoniness of mass media, surely it remained a pure, untouched, pristine artifact of rock rebellion.
Yeah, the irony that is coming is almost painful.
Happy.
But before we get to the corporate punchline, let's look at the actual musical blueprint this song left behind, because it literally rewired the grammar of rock music.
It really did. It left its mark through 3 major channels. First, as we discussed, using a distorted guitar as a primary lead melody.
Right.
Without that fuzz riff proving it could be a massive pop hook, you don't get Jimi Hendrix treating distortion as a lyrical voice.
And you certainly don't get the grunge movement of the 90s, like Nirvana, where distortion literally defines the emotional world of the song.
Exactly. And the second channel is the structure itself.
The riff-based architecture.
Right. Before this, pop songs were mostly built on chord progressions and vocal melodies. Building an entire song around one repeating, monolithic guitar loop paved the way for hard rock and heavy metal.
You can draw a direct line from Satisfaction to Deep Purple's Smoke on the Water, or really the entire Black Sabbath catalog.
Absolutely. But the third channel is more about the attitude, isn't it? The persona.
The alienated first-person complaint. That half-spoken, sneering vocal delivery dripping with disdain became the gold standard for rock authenticity.
You hear it immediately in Bob Dylan's Like a Rolling Stone, which came out just weeks later.
Just weeks.
Yeah. And you hear it in the punk movement with The Clash, and you hear it in Bruce Springsteen's characters, who are all essentially trying to break out of the cages of their hometowns.
It's also a surprisingly modular song. Because it's so structurally simple, you can pull it apart and put it back together in totally different genres, and it still works.
Like Otis Redding's cover.
Yes. He covered it just months after it came out in 1965. And what's wild is that he naturally added the exact Stax-style horn section that Keith Richards had originally wanted.
Which is so funny. Keith actually went on record calling Otis Redding's version the superior track.
And then, jump forward to 1978, and you have the new wave band Devo doing it.
The Devo cover is fascinating. They completely stripped out all the macho, bluesy swagger.
They replaced the groove with this robotic, jerky, polyrhythmic beat that sounds like malfunctioning factory machinery.
It turned the song into a Rust Belt anxiety attack. It proves that the core of the song, the profound frustration, works no matter how you dress it up.
But, okay, we have to talk about the ultimate paradox here. The $4 million irony.
Here we go.
This is a song that ruthlessly mocked TV commercials. It mocked the hollow promise that buying a product will fix your life, and yet it became one of the most exploited commercial assets in music history.
It's true. In 1991, Snickers paid $4 million to use Satisfaction for their Snickers Satisfies television advertising campaign.
It's almost too on the nose. Yeah. It's exactly what Jagger was warning us about. How does a band that wrote the ultimate anti-commercial anthem end up selling it to a candy company.
It comes down to the brutal mechanics of the 1960s music business.
The contracts?
Yeah. The Stones, like many young bands, signed some terrible contracts early in their career to avoid massive tax liabilities and get quick cash advances.
Right.
Because of these deals, their former manager, a famously ruthless businessman named Alan Klein and his company ABKCO, ended up holding the publishing rights to all the songs the Stones wrote in the 1960s.
So Jagger and Richards didn't even own their own Rebellion.
Exactly. When you don't own your publishing, you don't control how the composition is licensed for media. Jagger and Richards had very limited legal control over how their own anthem was used.
So the very hook that attacked useless information and advertising manipulation was suddenly being beamed into millions of living rooms to sell nougat and peanuts.
It's pretty bleak when you think about it.
This raises such a massive philosophical question, and I want you, the listener, to really think about this. Did the capitalist system just swallow its own critique?
That's the big question.
Did it take this authentic, snarling rebellion, sand off the edges, and process it into a marketable, safe vibe? Or is the song so inherently powerful, so undeniably rebellious, that even when you trap it inside a candy commercial, it still retains its original bite?
That is the essential tension at the heart of pop culture. It highlights how the counterculture's most potent symbols are almost always absorbed by the very systems they critique.
Like buying a Che Guevara t-shirt at a massive retail chain.
Exactly. But I'd argue the line, "I can't get no satisfaction," is so deeply rooted in universal human nature that it refuses to become just a jingle. It always carries that faint whiff of resistance, no matter the context.
So let's bring it all back. We started with a 21-year-old kid waking up in the dark, mumbling a melody into a Philips cassette recorder, and snoring for 40 minutes.
And from that mundane moment, we got a misunderstood fuzz box, an accidental studio masterpiece.
A delayed UK release that fueled a pirate radio revolution out on the open sea, and the heavyweight champion single of rock music.
It was the exact moment the Rolling Stones shifted from being a really good blues cover act into a legendary songwriting brand.
They found their adult voice, and in doing so, they gave youth culture a blueprint for technical innovation, structural simplicity, and cultural subversion.
A pretty good outcome for a sleep mumble.
It really is incredible how much history, technology, and sheer luck is packed into 3 minutes of music. But I want to leave you with a final thought to chew on today.
Always a good idea.
We've seen how satisfaction proved that you could achieve massive, global commercial success by directly attacking the commercialism of your audience's daily lives. So looking at the music landscape today, does true counterculture even exist in popular music anymore? Or is every act of musical rebellion today secretly just hoping to become the exact brand it claims to hate?
That is a question that definitely lingers.
If you like this episode, please like and subscribe to support the show.